everybody, Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well from the YouTube channel. Please consider subscribing, hitting the bell icon so you're made aware anytime we put new content on. Today's the first of a new series we're going to be running on the channel. It's called Away Day Stories. The reason being is, obviously I've interviewed probably over, 170, so people so far for the My Hammers 11 series. And when we talk about memories of the club, away days and away trips come up all the time, and it's something which obviously a lot of West Ham fans hold dear to them in terms of the proper fans go to away trips. And so that's the idea of this series, really, because the chances are we're not going to have any away trips this season. I'm pretty sure that's slim to none, and it's a massive part of the West Ham community. So this is an opportunity for everyone. If you've got a good away trip story, or maybe a poignant story, it doesn't have to be funny. It could be as I said, more poignant, more interesting. Please let me know. Whether you want to record it on your phone, just like I'm doing now. Just do a little recording of it and send it to me, and we'll just put it up as is. Or maybe you want to type it out as an email, and I'll read it out. Either or, send it to myhammers11@gmail.com, and we'll get you on. We'll do them in batches of 2 or 3. Short, snappier videos than what we're used to. So it's something a bit different for you guys to listen, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. And you'll feel compelled to email me with your stories. We've got 2 stories today. The first one is from Michelle Gabriel, who we've interviewed on the My Hammers 11 channel already, and she made me a lovely face mask as well with her business on Instagram, which we'll link to in the description below. And Michelle gives us a tale of injury, victory, then injury, and just compassion from football fans in general, not just necessarily West Ham fans. So football as a whole, and it's from Doncaster in August 2011. Michelle writes, "I've been working away, so didn't realise until Saturday morning that I had no ticket for the Doncaster game, and probably wasn't on the away scheme either. I called the club, whose first question was, 'Why didn't you know sooner?' To which my response was, 'How would I? How would I know I wasn't on the scheme?' My receipt said, 'Thank you for your order,' and since payment is only taken out just as tickets are released, it had been reasonable to assume I was on the scheme. The club apologised, they put me on the scheme, but sadly no ticket for the Doncaster game. They gave me the number for the Doncaster ticket office, but no one picked up. So I had tickets for me and my son Tom, train tickets, but no match day tickets. I decided to travel anyway. You rebel, Michelle. So we sat on the train next to 2 guys. One of them was a Fulham supporting sailor based in Portsmouth. The other was a young teacher from Hull." Which sounds like the beginning of a limerick, doesn't it? Thinking about, there once was a young teacher from Hull. Anyway, you can do the rest. We talked football all the way, adding a discussion about America as well, as he, one of the the student had studied over there. We all laughed, and others in the carriage laughed as well when a young lad came to check our tickets. He told us how little he was being paid, and we did have a think about giving a whip round for him, but we didn't do it anyway. The conversation was great, and Fulham and Hull wished us well for the game. My prediction was we'd squeeze a 1-0 victory. It was quite a long walk from the station to the ground. There was an away ticket office, and I probably just got the last ticket, to be honest. Into the stadium we went. Tea, burgers and beer purchased, no problem, no queues. Crowd was quite compact, but not bad at all. We had a more professional looking warm-up than pre-Sam. 1-0 to the Cockney boys. Bubbles, irons, shit town in Sheffield, shit town in Millwall, applauding their supporters when they finally started singing. Second half, we're shit and we're beating you. 1 Kevin Nolan, textbook. So we'd won the game. On the way back to the station, I noticed a street sign, Car House Road. Car spelt C-A-R-R, as in Tony. I'm building up quite an album of West Ham related place names. I wanted to photograph the side, but Tom had already crossed the road, her son. So halfway across, I decided to take the photo myself and reached my own iPhone. Suddenly, I was studying Car House Road, face down on the road, with my wrist in agony and feeling sick, and fainted. She completely stacked it and fell on her wrist. Tom and a West Ham family that were passing by helped me up and across the road. Some police arrived and a trainee paramedic put my arm in a sling. Pain, faintness, faintlessness and nausea washing over me. After some time, the police decided to drive me to the hospital as the ambulance couldn't get through the post-match traffic. In all my years of watching football, I have never left a match in a police car, and long may that continue, Michelle. A painful wait to be reassessed at the hospital. It was clear that we were going to miss our booked train, and it became increasingly clear that we were going to miss the last train back. Our mobile batteries were running down. We made the important calls to cancel evening and morning appointments. A nice family arrived next to us. The father and daughter had both been to the game and said, well, at least you won. Then the wife's mother turned up, and she had her arm in a sling. And she just shouted, snap. She'd fallen after visiting her husband in that same hospital. God dear. He joined them and told us that the injured lady's brother was also in there. So they were all bloody in the hospital, looks of it. Finding an assessment, an x-ray and another assessment, my radius was broken and splintered and the pieces were impacted and twisted. A consultant was going to have to yank and twist it all back into position again. Ouch, again. A long drawn-out anaesthetic injection seemed to add to the pain. Gas and air arrived, and I was encouraged to get myself high as a hippie. My arm yanked, and they put it into a semi-cast, and I realised that it felt a lot more comfortable. Another X-ray confirmed that it was okay, but I would have to have it checked again when I was in London. The Doncaster lady was next to me, and it felt good to be able to tell her that she would be feeling a lot better very, very soon. The family were concerned about us though, and the father offered to drive us to a hotel. He asked if we wanted to go to Tesco's beforehand to pick up some bits and bobs, some toiletries, but we already had some, so we declined nicely. When at the Premier Inn, he offered to wait while we checked in for our rooms. What a nice guy. I wished him and his family good health and a successful season for Doncaster. A nice meal, prescription painkillers and copious amounts of alcohol. Now, Michelle, this is naughty. You shouldn't be mixing alcohol with painkillers, just to say it. That's very naughty. But this helped ease the pain. The hotel lent us an iPhone charger, so we're back in contact with the world all over again. And I love those sort of calamitous stories, where it's always one thing, but it all ends up sorting itself out at the end. Thanks, Michelle. That was really, 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 really fun. And obviously Doncaster away is not a massively eventful game, I'd imagine, usually at the time. So it was nice to do that, so thank you very much. Our second story is a more of a poignant story by another friend of the channel, Colin Milne. And it's about a trip to our friends Millwall. And it goes as follows. May the 4th be with you. They may have said that as you left to go to the game, but they didn't. This was 1972 and it was 5 years before Star Wars. Red rum was still something that needed a splash of Coke, and I was insisting on having a light ale with a pint of bitter because bitter was going through its bland flat period. I would not know, to be honest, Colin. I'm more of a lager man, if at all, really. Colin was 16, so how was you drinking? How's you drinking, Colin? You're only 16, legal age was 18. But he'd left school and had a proper job since July of the year before, of 1971. A pay packet had allowed me to enjoy a fair few away days. I went on my own this time. It was a testimonial and no one else really fancied it. It never bothers me to be on my own really when I go to a game. It has to be said though, since with wonderful hindsight, that having Millwall was just plumb crazy to have West Ham for a benefit game, for a testimonial. Maybe. The fact was that Harry Cripps started at the West Ham youth team with Bobby, and a few of the other lads would have known a few of the faces. Ted and Benny Benton would have had links with both as well. I think they assumed that the bumper crowd would have put an extra few quid in Harry's pocket as well. So Harry Cripps' testimonial game was Millwall versus West Ham. Okay, we can see how this is going already, don't we? Colin had been already been to Spurs, Arsenal, Fulham, Chelsea, Leyton Orient and QPR, and had ambitions to do all the London grounds, so this fitted in nicely with his plans. To get there, he had to pass through one of the most beautiful tunnels ever built, the Thames Tunnel by Brunel. Now, Colin gives us a bit of history lesson about the tunnel, which I think is nice. The tunnel was designed for horse-drawn carriages, but instead was used by pedestrians and became a tourist attraction. It had marble walkways, and the archways had little shops. Ladies walked in with promenades with dainty parasols. In 1869, it was converted into a railway tunnel for use by the East London Line, which since 2010 is part of the London Overground network under the ownership of Transport for London. Sounds good, but by that time the Whitechapel to New Cross line wasn't particularly elegant. It was the dirty red tube, and the station smelt damp. It was a line that took you from a depraved, rundown area through a similar area, through forgotten stations. It was like a sewer excursion. From either New Cross station, it was a short walk north. The den must have been designed by different architects, each doing their own side and never conversing with one another. There was a fair amount of access around the ground to the other parts of the ground. I'd arrived at the Cold Blow Lane and bought a programme and put the cash over the turnstile, and I was in. Glancing at the end behind the goal, I would normally have slid in my way with our own fans on the adage of safety in numbers, but this had already looked ominous. My judgment on knowing where not to be has served me well for the last 50 years, or over 50 years. This was going to be a game when I was going to watch with my hands in my pockets and my feelings in my head. So I slipped to the terrace to the right of the Cold Blow Lane, the one that had been designed by the geezer who had clearly lost his set square. The match was littered with inconsequential football, and the stadium with outbreaks of hatred. Most of the middle-aged men around me stared with faces of steel at what was occurring. It was threatening throughout, but it turned out to be a picnic compared to what happened afterwards. With my trouble radar turned up to 11, I wasn't leaving the game early or on the final whistle. I casually leant on the crush barrier and read the programme. I climbed to the top of the Cold Blow Lane, to the top where the terrace reversed in camber to the open exits. To my right down the road there was a mass of West Ham fans, probably around 200 or so. I recognised a few regular faces I'd seen at away trips. To the left stood about 150 fans. I understand from other people who ended up in the middle of the crowd that there were other Millwall fans further to the left behind the stand itself. In the middle stood one policeman and his dog. Then a Millwall fan, completely alone, walked the 50 feet or so and started a fight with about 10 at the same time. He must have hit 3 or 4 before anyone reacted. I don't get involved in violence, but in those days I didn't condemn it. If you wanted to get a bloody nose or receive a bloody nose, that wasn't my problem at all. For anyone who was there, and you would need to have probably been over 60, the protagonist probably mostly over 70 now, and they want to say it was glorious in any way, I have to disagree with them. If, however, they say it was the worst violence they've ever seen, then yes, that's right. For a full 10 minutes, fights continued in the road, in the gardens of houses, and very few ran away. People got badly beaten on both sides before the mounted police arrived. Not a single front garden had an undented dustbin. The fighting continued all the way to the stations and on the trains, and I didn't want to, but I didn't see that really. That I went off to find Surrey Dock Station instead. One group did stop me. Shout, "Who are you? Where are you going?" I ignored the first question and he said answer the second one, saying, "I've been at the football and I'm walking home." I was hopeful that by saying walking home they would assume I was a local rather than a hammer. They lost interest in me and carried on searching. I wanted to write about this trip more than any other away trip in the hope that that no one will try it and tell you this was a great night. It wasn't, but it was certainly eventful. Colin, thank you. That was really, really interesting. When I thought of the channel, I didn't necessarily think about the side that you come for, which is actually really sort of poignant stories, and there must be lots of poignant stories as well. So feel free, whether they're funny, poignant, whatever, feel free to contact me, myhammers11@gmail.com. Anyway, hope you found it a bit different, a bit of a story time with Russie B. But thanks for listening. Hope we get a lot more of these. People will be sending them through. And until next time, for myself, take care, stay safe, come on you irons. See you again very, very soon. Bye bye.